Hi everyone, Katie Winkle here with There's a Balance for That. And today I want to talk about the importance of language. Now, language, of course, is something that we use to communicate with other people. But the other important role language has is it starts to help us run programs in our subconscious mind. And our subconscious uses that information as data for how we want to create and achieve the goals that we set out for ourselves. And so let's kind of like break down some examples of that to kind of really anchor this point, okay? So I have a 6-year-old daughter, and she is a child that likes to get things right the first time. And so if she feels like she's going to fail, what she'll say is, well, I can't do that. And do you see how limiting, or do you hear how limiting that is? I can't do that. Versus, and I'm trying to teach her this, well, you have not yet learned how to do this, right? So if she's saying to herself, well, I can't do that, and I'm telling her, you have not yet learned how to do that, let's go ahead and give it a shot. Do you think that she's going to say, well, I can't do that and then try? Or do you think she's going to say, I have not yet learned how, and yes, I do want to try that out. There is a very fine line between the two, but what happens in the subconscious is that it takes in language as data. The subconscious has no opinion. It has no thoughts of its own. It's just a massive database that runs all of the systems of our body. This is the program that runs when we know that we need to go to the bathroom. We get up, we walk to the bathroom, we empty our bladder, we pull our pants back up, we wash our hands. That takes hundreds and hundreds of sequences of muscles and physiological processes in the body, and we're not really thinking about any of it because we've done it over and over and over and over again every single day, right? And for the many, many years of our lives. So that's a program that just runs for itself. But that's like a physiological thing. What if we're talking about when we're growing up, and our parents, a lot of the times, they might say something, well, some parents will say, well, you haven't yet learned how to do it. Let's try and see what happens. And other parents might say, well, you're never going to be good at basketball because you're not tall enough. Which one do you think that kid's going to believe? Do you think if a parent says, well, you're never going to be good at basketball, but go ahead and try anyway and see what happens? How many of those kids are going to be great basketball players? Probably not very many, because they have lived under the assumption that I'm not going to be good at basketball, and that's been wired into their subconscious. Now, here's an interesting little tidbit. Children, they live 100% out of their subconscious until they're around 7 years old. And so that means like any like logic, reasoning, explanation for stuff, it doesn't really land. That's why when a kid is who's 2 or 3 years old is trying to like you're trying to get them to come out of their temper tantrum, it's not going to work for you to try to reason or explain anything to them. But when they turn about 7, they start to understand logic a lot better. And the reason for that is because that's when they're starting to grow out of their subconscious mind. And so think about the programming that you might be running in the background. And that's probably what's creating your reality. Now, the beauty is that we can actually shift our programming to create a reality that actually supports us if we have the right tools on how to do that. And one of the major tools on how to do that is language. And so when I'm setting goals for myself, I'll always set goals that include the language of, I deserve to have the goal. Okay, so let me use the example of a kitchen remodel. My husband and I are working on this right now. I deserve to have a beautiful kitchen. So a few years ago, I was thinking to myself, I'll never be in a place where I can have exactly the kitchen I want. Well, since using these tools that I have, I now say things like, I deserve to have a beautiful kitchen, and we're working on our beautiful kitchen, and our beautiful kitchen is going to be done in 6 months, versus me saying, oh, I don't know if that's ever going to happen for us. And so if we're using the language of, I don't know if that's ever going to happen, I don't think that's ever going to happen, I don't know if I'm really good enough for that, and isn't that too much money to spend? And what kind of people really remodel their kitchens in the first place? Like, how come what they have isn't good enough? I was living in that space for a really long time. And when I started to recognize the limitation of the language I was using and started shifting that, not just around kitchen remodels, but about everything in my life, I deserve this. It is easy for me to accomplish this. I want to create this for myself. It feels amazing to go through these hurdles and come out stronger on the other side. There's a lot of expansion, and so when I'm using language like that, like, it's going to create a lot more opportunity in my life when I'm not worrying about all of the things in my house that I want to change, and I release all of the guilt I feel about spending money on something that seems frivolous. The truth is, it's not frivolous. I spend a lot of time and energy thinking about all of the ways and working in a kitchen that's very inefficient. And so when I started to recognize the possibility and the expansiveness and what else is possible by creating language that supports me and the goals that I want to achieve, more and more of my goals have come true, and they've come true in a faster way. Something else that's really interesting about language is that as society, we tend to get really hung up on an outcome needing to look a certain way. And what I've started to recognize is that when we start asking questions that come from a place of curiosity and what else is possible, we might, and usually frequently this happens, our outcomes can be so much greater than what we ever could have imagined for ourselves in the first place. In our human brain, in our conscious mind, we're processing about 40 bits per second if we're comparing ourselves to computers. And our subconscious mind is processing 40 million bits per second. And so when you compare the potential of the conscious mind and what we want to create and what we want to have control over to the subconscious mind and everything that it does without even really thinking about it, don't we really want to have access to our subconscious mind and create out of the subconscious mind rather than out of the conscious mind? What do you think? Whatever it is that your challenges are, be paying attention to the language that you use and how the language has control over your outcome. Start to shift your language to be more supporting of you, using positive language, using more expansive language, and start to notice the differences in the feedback that you get, not just from yourself, but also from those that you work with. And you might even find that your luck starts to change. Now, if there are things that you know that you want to create for yourself that you have always struggled with and you can't figure out why you haven't hit those goals yet, know that there's a balance for that, and we can reprogram those limiting beliefs that you have in just a matter of minutes when you book a session with me. So any questions on that or how that would work for you, go ahead and send me a message or visit my website, there'sabalanceforthat.com. Take a look at my packages, or there's a contact me button. Whatever feels best for you, I go ahead and meet you where you're at. And remember, no matter what your challenges are, there is a balance for that, and I'll see you soon.